Let's go to work, bro. But they about to. Cause you making moves that can't be ignored. Cause you changing the game. Cause you making the narratives work to your advantage. They told you the plan wasn't good enough, so you made it better. They told you people didn't want to hear what you had to say, so you made them listen. You ain't never moved in fear. You don't doubt your abilities, you calculate it. And that's why you get the results. That's why you don't sweat the small stuff. Cause you know as long as you put the work in, nothing is impossible. The kind of mindset that you have don't even make sense to them. Cause some people are so used to losing that winning don't even seem realistic. You was never one of them people that was proud of mediocrity. You was always the person that knew you were meant for more. And that level of motivation, that kind of intuition is what sets you apart. I wish I could be more like you. I wish I knew what it was like to be so sure of myself that nothing else even matters. Keep inspiring, keep showing us the way, and don't let the negativity take you over the edge. You are what you say you are.
Up next, Mr.O. Be on grind, baby. Let's get it. Ay, 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 be on grind. Ay, 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 be on grind. Ay, 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 be on grind.
Wake up and grind, man, to all my haters. Thank God for the win. You just got a second chance. Do something with it. And today, staying with the reactions, I found a video by this podcast that I like to watch called Diary of a CEO. They have great work, interview lots of variety of guests regularly. And the guy who does the interviews, he's pretty famous. He's on the Shark Tank, what's it called? Lion's Den overseas. And he has various other companies that you may know him from. But in this particular video, he interviewed an ex-CIA spy by the name of Andrew Busmati. And their video stuck out to me for one particular reason. So I'm going to react to a clip of the video on his Clips channel where he talks about why him and his family may be leaving the United States. The video is called "I Don't Want to Live in the U.S. When This Happens in 2030. So although today may not be the day we are looking to leave, I think we should be scouting alternative options for ourselves. Because of this video in particular, there's some things that may stand out to you as well on making future plans for alternative backup plans in the event of anything happens. They're going to get into some geopolitics and some other things. And I think he's going to make a great case on why exiting the U.S. just might make sense for a lot of Americans. But first things first, let me grab this cup of coffee.
Fresh out the pot, straight drop, straight drop, straight drop.
Now let's get into the video.
You're going to leave America in 2030?
I'm going to try and leave America in 2027.
I read that somewhere. Why are you going to try and leave America in 2027?
So I think the United States is going through a very difficult time right now, and I think most people understand that. We are a young country. No matter how much we think that we are the best in the world, we are actually going through the early part of our adolescence as a nation. And you can see it playing out every day in the headlines. You can see it in our role in geopolitical events.
America is the youngest country. I think we forget that, or we just don't realize that because we're such a powerful nation. We don't realize that we are the youngest country on the planet. It's like a big experiment here. And today, more than ever, you see that playing out.
You can see that we're suffering in terms of trying to identify ourselves. We don't know, do we want to be a real democracy? Do we want to be kind of a partial democracy? Do we want to treat everybody as equal? Do we not want to treat everybody as equal? We're struggling in the same way that you and I did through middle school, right? My children mean the world to me. And what I want to do is give them a life where they have the choice to do anything they want to do. Unfortunately, I don't believe our country for the next 5 to 10 years is going to be the kind of country that allows children of today to choose and be whatever they want to be.
That's an interesting point. Selfishly, I'm considering some things, but it's important to think about if you have any kids coming behind you, a family that's going to live beyond you, the younger generations, what is this planet or this country going to look like for them? Based on what we see and transpire today, a little unsure, but I'll let him break down further in detail.
I think our country has some growing up of its own to do before we really offer people equal access to opportunities. So for me, if I was my 11-year-old son, when I turned 15 or 16 years old and I start to really care about something, I would like to be in a place where I can explore that thing. I don't think that's going to be in the United States. I think that's going to be in Europe. I think that's going to be in the Middle East. I think that's going to be in Latin America, really? Where he will have all the advantages of the world outside of the United States.
What do you think about what's going on at the moment with geopolitics as it relates?
It's interesting him to say Latin America is a better future resident than America. The Middle East, for sure, better resident for future stay. Europe, certain parts of Europe. I'm not thinking he's speaking about the UK in particular. Europe's pretty big. He didn't say Asia, but I don't think he named everywhere.
It's to like China and the US. There's a bit of a power struggle going on, and there has been, but a lot of people forecast that China is eventually going to overtake, or maybe it already has, the US as the sort of global economic force. Are you preparing for that? Do you think it's going to happen?
I think that there's two realistic outcomes and there's one less realistic outcome. The most realistic outcome is that the United States and China continue to compete and reach parity, equality with each other. That's the most realistic outcome. Maybe the United States remains 10% bigger. Maybe China gets 2% bigger economically, but they approach parity. They approach equality. I don't want to live in the United States when it loses so much status that another country reaches economic parity.
Now you think about that. China owns a lot of this country as far as what we import from China. Damn near everything. We're in debt to China on many levels, which is why these tariffs make sense. Don't get confused on why they're saying Trump is doing tariffs on other countries. It makes sense for lots of reasons. We're in too much debt and we got to get out of it. And we've been taken advantage of. The business of this country has not been handled correctly. I just think a lot of people aren't aware of that. But he's making an interesting point. We depend on them so much so that they can one day overtake us. And the way he's describing, best case scenario right now, we level off. Would you really want to live in a country like America if China catches up to us and becomes an equal? I think our biggest strength right now is our military. And we're giving up some of the mystique that we used to have, that a lot of the countries, the rest of the world used to fear us on. So I'm gonna let him keep talking and explain this further.
Think about that for a second. The world is accustomed to one superpower. Once there are two superpowers, everything changes.
Yes.
There's two massive languages, and you're going to have to choose which language you speak. There's two currencies. Right. Which currency are you going to save your money in?
Right.
There's competing priorities. There's competing politics. There's equal.
The American dollar, it's powerful enough to sustain our power throughout the world. If we have to choose, and people have a choice, it decreases the value of what ours is worth. And when the rest of the world starts to trade with a different currency other than the US dollar, such as they do oil today, we're in trouble.
Massive, sophisticated militaries. When you are in one of those two countries, at the moment that they reach parity, you are in the most dangerous position, because the number one target for China will be the United States. The number one target for the United States will be China. Right now, there's not parity, there's not equality. So the United States has to worry about everybody. And China doesn't really have to worry about many people at all.
Right.
But as that equality gets closer and closer, there's more and more threat. Think about it in business terms. When you're the industry leader in your business,
Google.
you don't have to worry about much. You have to worry about all the little guys, but nobody's really a direct threat.
Right.
But as soon as somebody else rises to meet you, you have to worry about it.
Right.
The leader used to be Yahoo, right? Yahoo had to see what it's like to lose and gain parity with Google, only to then be eclipsed, right? So most probable outcome, we reach parity. Second most probable outcome is that China does supersede us by small amounts, right? 5% GDP, 10% GDP. And the United States has to regain its momentum to try to gain back the edge. So now you have this cycle back and forth, right? Where for 5 years, China is the leading GDP. For 5 years, the United States is the leading GDP. And you have this waffling back and forth, which makes you even less secure than if you were in direct parity.
And what do you do then?
But that's a scary place to be as well. You still have to lose all the influence to get there. And when you're there, you never know how long it's going to last.
Right.
Do you think we're already engaged in a form of World War III?
Yeah, absolutely. I think World War III is already happening. I think World War III is not what people think it was going to be. I think people were afraid that World War III was somehow going to look like another World War II. Instead, World War III is a war of proxy nations. It's a war. It's a war where smaller third world countries are competing against each other.
Proxy war.
And they're being funded by larger countries that are actually in conflict with one another.
Right. Yeah, proxy war is a scary thing. Proxy war, when they fight these wars outside of America in order to gain momentum over our allies and weaken us. China's not going to want to destroy America and fight the war on our land because they won't make a profit instantly off of it.
Ukraine and Russia. U.S. is funding Ukraine. Russia's obviously taking care of itself.
Yeah.
But the real conflict in Ukraine isn't about Ukraine. It's about the West versus Russia.
Right.
Same thing's going to happen with Taiwan and China. When the time comes that China makes its biggest move on Taiwan, it's already made the small moves on Taiwan. When it makes its largest move on Taiwan, it's going to become a question of China versus the West and whoever supports Taiwan.
Right. And I'll stop the video right there. Just a different angle and perspective on why people are choosing to leave America. And this is coming from an ex-CIA spy himself. He knows a few things about the ins and outs of this country that we may not be privy to. And he's looking to move his family out due to geopolitics. Another thing to consider. China is a big threat, and you may want to have somewhere to go in the event that they either become equals to us or overtake us. Right now you're living in a world you may not know what your future holds. You may have your head down, just working, trading hours for dollars to pay bills, collecting things like anchors that keep you tied down, and you never really seen a lot of the country or the world for yourself and really experienced life. A lot of people just exist in the world today. How long are you going to do that? How long are you going to just exist in the world? But more importantly, when are you going to start just living? And that's my time. I'm Mr.O, and I'm just living. Stay smooth and keep it player. You did.